What am I doing up here? He ain't say nothing for me. You filled me in today, babe. Let's go. Let's get it.
Be there and lead. Leadership matters. Say leadership matters. Leadership matters. So being an effective leader means that you're following. Actually, leader, I want to challenge you. If you consider yourself to be a leader, I want you to make sure that somebody's actually following you. My grandfather would say this: if you think that you're a leader and nobody's following you, then you just out taking a walk. So some people, next time you see, please don't say this out loud, but don't say it out loud like you're just taking a walk. Don't say that, but if you see somebody, they happen to not be an effective leader and you notice that, then they might not be in their calling. They might just be out taking a walk. Forward. Steve Jobs, another one. I have a lot of Apple products. Steve Jobs, before he passed away, he was the owner. He was the CEO of Apple. He had all these talented people together. It was said, if you ever watched the documentary, with the iPad, he could tell you what the iPad could do years before the iPad came out. But here's the interesting thing. He never put any of the technology together. Steve Jobs never made an iPhone. He never made an iPad. He never put together a MacBook computer. He never did any of those things. So I said to myself, how's he getting all the money? How's he a billionaire, but he didn't build these things? It makes you see what an effective leader does. He gives talented people something to do. He got people together to be able to make the iPad. They couldn't come up with the idea of the iPad, but they could put the iPad together. How effective is a leader when look, this is what I've heard. A manager tries to get people to do things that they do not want to do. Steve Jobs said this, but a leader can get people to do things that they never believed that they could do. Difference between a manager and a leader. A manager tries to get people to do things they don't want to do. A leader can get something out of you that you didn't even know you could do yourself. Henry Ford, again, when he wanted to come up with a V8 engine, they said, we can't do this. They told him it was impossible. You know what he said? I want it done. Can you see him like, wait, what? Wait a minute, we can't do this. He said, don't do anything else. Just work on this. I want it done. They said 6 months rolled by. They still couldn't get it done. He said, I want it done. He said a year went by. They still couldn't get it done. I want it done. All of a sudden, like magic, they said all of a sudden they began to be able to come up with the technology because an effective leader would not move until he got talented people to do something that he wanted them to do. Steve Jobs, Henry Ford, Martin Luther King, one of the most effective leaders ever in civil rights. But I have news for you. If you study any history, my degree was in African American studies, he was not the only leader in civil rights. But I guarantee you, civil rights would have never been what it is without Martin Luther King. Watch how an effective leader he was. He said this. He said, if the world would end tomorrow, I would still plant my apple tree today. How great of a leader is that? That means I'm going to do something that I might not even benefit from. That's leadership. That's laying your life down. That's saying when somebody else will benefit from it and it may never benefit me, but I'll still do it, that's when you are a leader. Listen to one of his most powerful speeches. He said, I had a dream. He said, I've been to the mountaintop. He said, I've seen the promised land. And then the effective leader said, I may not get there with you. But then he said, but we as a people shall see the promised land. How great of a leader to stand up in front of people and to get them to believe that they are going to get somewhere that he may not get to himself. An effective leader or a visionary gets talented people to do what they don't even think they can do sometimes. So let's go back to teams for a minute, right? When you have a team, when you have an effective team, we can look at it like this. If you have any championship team, if you don't even know about a team, just go look one up. No team has ever won a championship without a coach. You ever think about that? If the coach was that bad, why isn't that they don't just fire the coach and let the team do whatever they want to do? They always go hire another coach. That's because you always need somebody standing on the outside to get out of you what you cannot get out of yourself. You can look at Michael Phelps, best swimmer they say ever in the world. Usain Bolt, best sprinter ever in the world. They still had coaches. They still won championships. Didn't show up the next year and say, I don't need nobody to lead me. I'm going to do this all myself. No, they won championship because they still had somebody standing on the outside and telling them what they need to do. Most of their coaches were as a coach who was successful, him or herself. Why? Because a leader can tell you where you're going before you get there. A leader will get it out of you. A leader, it's like the blind leading the blind. You got somebody who's not an effective leader, they can't tell you nothing because they ain't been nowhere themselves. You're like, where we going? I don't know. I thought you knew. I don't know either, but we just ain't going nowhere. They say, you blind leading the blind, you're going to both end up in the ditch.
Let's grow, let's grow, let's grow. Let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's go.